When Danny revealed the split ball, I felt sick because I didn't want to steal from him, but I thought that he was going to steal.
Losing my share of over £700 is heartbreaking. No, seriously, I'm not too fussed. I think I'll get over it.
My message for Danny would be, I'm sorry I didn't trust you, and I really do wish I had split.
What a gentleman. Never mind. You can catch highlights of yesterday's footy action in the Championship over on ITV4. After the news next, it's time to bid a sad farewell to Jack in Emmerdale.
At ITV Bingo.
To find out how you could have the chance to bluff your way to the big money, go to itv.com/goldenballs.
Tonight, the van driver cut off in the snow for 4 days.
Elsewhere, it's been a day of mopping up after a huge downpour.
Ha! Today's the day.
Eh? Carlo, today's the day. Hey, Sophia, today is the day!
Today's the day! No, get off.
Hey, Carlo, what are you up to tomorrow? Tomorrow? But, Papa, today is the day! When say you're the mio day?
When a stroke strikes, it spreads like a fire in the brain. The longer it goes undetected, the more damage is done. To spot the signs of a stroke, you have to think and act fast. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Just like a fire, it's time to call 999 if you see any single one of these signs. The faster you act, the more of the person you save. When stroke strikes, act fast.
To keep up with the 16-hour day, you need a foundation with real staying power.
Infallible makeup from L'Oréal Paris with co-resisting technology. Combats signs of tiredness, looks fresh and prevents rub-off. Lasts up to 16 hours. Infallible 16-hour makeup. And now discover new Infallible Compact Foundation from L'Oréal.
Because you're worth it.
Go, go, go. This lady needs our help and fast. She's suffering from heartburn and needs Gaviscon. She can feel the cooling and soothing already. Good job, lads.
What a feeling!
Gaviscon, what a feeling. And if you like Gaviscon liquid, you'll love new Gaviscon liquid sachets.
For liquid relief, when you're on the go.
Introducing Twister Mop from JML, the self-wringing mop that twists and locks. Made from chenille microfiber, it helps make light work of big spills. Now you can help keep all hard surfaces clean and dry. Twister Mop is super absorbent, yet the 360-degree twist wrings out every last drop. See the wringing power for yourself. And it's so easy to store. Plus, the scourer tip is great for dried-on surface stains. No drips, no puddles, no tangles. Just $9.99 at Asda now.
Vaseline Intensive Rescue Lotion is specially formulated to deliver twice the moisture of E45 lotion. To help very dry skin lock in the moisture it needs.
Please sit down. Leodam, just relax. You must resist.
I will resist the mild, creamy, surprising taste.
I'm so sorry.
Leodammer. Resistance is futile. Leodammer now comes in mature slices too.
These are the highest risk policing situations that you will find anywhere.
At some stage, you will make a life or death decision. the stakes don't get any higher than that.
If you think you can go in this department without having to pull that trigger, you're in the wrong job.
In the Line of Fire, tonight at 9 on ITV1.
Tonight on West Country Live, underwater, more weather woe for the West Country as the snow melts, the rain falls and the floods come.
Sophie Waller inquest on day 2. The court hears evidence from the psychologist in charge of her case.
Good evening. We're in a bit of a jam tonight. Well, not jam, strictly speaking, but marmalade.
That's because it's the season for Seville oranges, the crucial ingredient for a good orange jam, and we're visiting the region's top marmalade maker. Also tonight...
Find out my top tip for the West Country's best chip.
And Tanang, the Sumatran tiger, and his 4 offspring meet their public at Paynton Zoo.
Hello there. The West Country is still recovering from a vicious winter storm which swept through the region last night, bringing more snow, powerful winds, driving rain and floods.
What a week of weather it's been, and in amongst it all, the incredible rescue of the delivery driver who'd been cut off by the snow for 4 days. Bob Cruz reports.
If you thought the snow was bad last week, it was nothing compared to the rain and floods in the past 24 hours. The fact the rain fell on top of melting snow only added to the devastating effects. At the King of Prussia pub in Kingsbridge this morning, they were cleaning up after last night's deluge. The flow of water didn't affect the flow of beer, though, and it certainly didn't stop the locals enjoying their evening out last night. Some were back this morning to help with the clean-up.
I was sitting right here last night and didn't bother to take my shoes and socks off or nothing. There was no point. The water was up to my knees, and it was sort of out here on the fireplace. Of course, the fire had gone out and the logs and the coal were floating everywhere, and well, you know, you had to laugh really because there's nothing else you could do.
It started flowing through the door, through the garage, into the utility area, straight into the bar, and then obviously with the traffic going past was causing wakes which were coming pounding through, and within 20 minutes we had a foot in here and it rose to about 2 foot.
The water's all subsided now, but when it was at its deepest, it was about up to here on the pool table. There's a tide mark there, well over a foot of water right throughout the pub, and of course it left behind a really nasty layer of silt and mud, and it's taken a lot of hard work by the staff and some helpful locals to get all that cleared up. In Bickley overnight, the River Exe was a raging torrent as heavy rain combined with melting snow. The car park at the Fisherman's Cot was flooded, and throughout the region, roads had to be closed as highways became more like rivers. That was certainly the case in Dorset. The A37 at Stratton near Dorchester was completely submerged and impassable for hours. The driver of this car had to abandon ship under a railway bridge, as his stepfather explained to us.
When he actually entered it, it was only in the region of about 200 millimetres deep. But by that time it was a point of no return. It actually started cutting the engine out of the car, and of course then the floodwaters started to come in and he just waded himself back out.
The road chaos continued in Falmouth, where a landslip into the road on Dracaena Avenue, the main road into the town, caused traffic problems in the morning. The heavy rain also caused chaos at Dartmoor Zoological Park at Sparkwell. The destruction left by the floodwater will leave the owners with a hefty repair bill. But perhaps one of the most astonishing stories to come out of this week of extreme weather is that of delivery driver Christopher Smith. Missing since Thursday after he was cut off by a blizzard in North Devon, he's finally been found by Coast Guards after 4 days huddled in a cave with only rainwater to drink. For the team which rescued him, it was quite an operation.
It was elation. I could have jumped for joy just knowing that we had found him in a safe condition. He was really cold and wet, but just to find him there was great. It was such a relief.
Tonight, the worst of the wintry weather has passed for now, and those still clearing up after last night's ferocious storm are banking on a forecast of more settled weather to come. Bob Cruz for West Country News.
Well, let's find out. A short while ago, we spoke to Bob at Cadover Bridge near Plymouth. I asked him how the rivers are looking tonight.
Well, what a difference 24 hours makes. This time yesterday, we were just starting to get into the grip of what was a really vicious winter storm. This evening, well, it's largely clear. It is still pretty cold, though, but nothing like the rain we saw last night. The river here is still fairly swollen. It's still flowing fairly fast, but nothing like yesterday when so much rain fell here. All of that rain, of course, had to go somewhere, and it coursed down off the moor and caused the kind of floods we saw today and in places right across the West Country. That said, tonight there are still a number of flood warnings in place. The Environment Agency has around 10 flood warnings in place for our region. In particular, I should mention the Lower Exe in Exeter and the River Clyst between Broadclyst and Clyst St Mary. Also the River Yoe between Yeovil and Langport. All of these areas still under the Environment Agency's flood warning. And you can get all the details of those at the Environment Agency website, which is environment-agency.gov.uk. Or, of course, there is still Floodline. But this evening, the weather here pretty clear, and I guess people who are clearing up from their floods will be hoping that they get those predicted couple of days of more settled weather.
Bob Cruz there. The inquest into the death of Sophie Waller has been hearing evidence about her health before the little girl's death. The 8-year-old from Cornwall apparently starved to death because of a phobia of dentists.
Today, the court heard from the psychologist in charge of assessing Sophie, who had refused to eat or drink after an operation to remove her milk teeth in November 2005. Emma Snowden reports.
Sophie Waller was just 8 years old when she died after apparently starving to death because of a phobia of dentists. Today, the coroner, Dr. Emma Carline, heard from those who had contact with the family in the weeks before her death. This morning, the court heard from the psychologist in charge of assessing the condition of the 8-year-old. Dr. Davison told the court that on the 15th of November, doctors at the Royal Cornwall Hospital had requested a psychological assessment because Sophie was refusing to eat and drink following the operation to remove her milk teeth. She met the child and her family on Monday, the 21st of November. On several occasions over the following week, Dr. Davison spoke to her parents and said she appeared to be having some good days. On the 29th of November, Mr. and Mrs. Walker asked their GP for some high-calorie drinks. But before another visit could be arranged, Dr. Davison received a call on the 2nd of December saying that Sophie had died. During this period, Dr. Davison told the court that despite several phone conversations with Sophie's parents, she had no reason to believe that her condition had deteriorated to such a degree that she needed further medical treatment. Emma Snowden in Truro for West Country News.
A trade union representing Plymouth City Council workers said tonight it's to take legal advice over proposed redundancies. 200 jobs are under threat as the council battles against severe financial problems. The GMB says it hasn't ruled out industrial action when the time comes. Jeanette Oxley reports.
Beneath a picture painted by a controversial local artist, GMB members met today over a controversy which could prove life-changing for them. The City Council proposes to delete 300 posts. 200 of those are currently occupied. The GMB says the figure is unprecedented in the council's recent history.
Every year the council obviously uses its opportunity to look at its vacancies, look at where it needs to replace people, and has often made budget savings in the past through that term natural wastage. What we're talking about this time is actually dismissing up to 200 people. We simply have not seen any facts or figures or any information that supports the need for that sort of action.
The council says it's an uphill struggle to balance the books in an unforgiving economic climate.
We are in the process of setting up a meeting with the unions to discuss the way forward. Meanwhile, it's important to recognise that the City Council is in an extremely difficult financial situation, and we simply cannot expect to be immune from the economic turmoil going on around us.
In the middle of it all, workers are confused.
Well, we haven't been given any information yet, so we're not sure where the redundancies are going to fall.
Our particular department head released a number to us, and there's a bit of an uproar about that number. We're very confused.
Just find out sort of where we stand and what the unions are going to do for us, really.
Obviously, it's very worrying at the moment, especially with the current climate and not knowing what's happening. We haven't really been given any feedback as such as to what's going to happen, so just a bit of an anxious time, really.
Well, we've been asked to leave the meeting so the members can speak freely. But in the time we've been in there, this council has been described as one which turns on its employees and has lost its way. And that was just the opening speeches. There's no doubt many more harsh words will be said as this redundancy process continues. Janet Oxley in Plymouth for Westcountry News.
The South West is now the third best region in the country for recycling. Devon County Council has launched a fresh campaign to get us all to waste less.
Somerset has the highest recycling rates in the country, while its neighbour Devon is fifth in the charts and is determined to close that gap. Richard Lawrence has been finding out more.
It all starts at home, and for householders it's taken some getting used to. It can cause confusion, but it's now second nature for Hannah Vincent in Newton Abbot.
Yeah, I think it is. I think people are getting more and more used to it. It's becoming easier. You know what goes in what bin, what can go in recycling and what has to go in waste. And the facilities are so much more extensive than they used to be. You can actually really reduce the amount of stuff that just goes in the general waste bin, and your recycling facilities can kind of cope with everything else.
But the results are worth it. Within 7 days, newspaper collected from her bin will be sent to Kent and back in print on the stands once more. It's all collected here at one of the county's 8 recycling centres, and here in Newton Abbot, it's certainly worth it. The aluminium in drinks cans is worth £650 a tonne. And what does it make? More drinks cans.
In Devon, we are lucky enough to be in contracts where we can actually sell on the material, so we're not experiencing the same problems that other authorities are. We've got very good contracts and we're keeping it all out of landfill, which is the great thing to do.
One of the reasons why Devon is rated so highly is down to the shops it's opened to resell our unwanted items and curiosities.
And what a surprise.
Loads
of old golf clubs.
Aren't they fantastic? We get mountains of golf clubs. I think golf players always like the latest up-to-date equipment.
The contents of the yard and its 2 adjacent warehouses only represent less than 3% of what arrives here.
Given that it's only 2 or 3% of what you actually collect in total, is it really worth it?
Of course it is, and it's great. I mean, the public love it, and quite understandably too. Reuse is important. We can take items and we can smash them apart and take them back to their core elements, if you like, scrap metal and those sorts of things. But if you can actually reuse the item without doing all that, well, that's positive.
The challenge now is to continue to drive down the amount we send to landfill. That means encouraging householders to use leftover food, and Devon County Council is even devising recipes for ratepayers. And if you're not yet recycling, then take a look at this, a waste mountain that can be seen from Dartmoor.
And in the lee of the National Park, this hill has been largely created by more than 12 million tonnes of rubbish that's been dumped here since 1980.
Richard Lawrence, near Newton Abbot for Westcountry News.
More news in brief. Almost 5 years after his body was discovered off the coast of Cornwall, police say they're pursuing fresh leads in the murder of Peter Solheim. The parish councillor from Carnkye near Helston had been drugged and mutilated before being dumped in the sea. His former lover, Margaret James, was convicted of conspiracy to murder, but the police have always believed she didn't act alone. A £10,000 reward is being offered by Crime Stoppers.
A man's been charged in connection with the shooting of a Plymouth man on his doorstep. Car dealer Colin Pester was shot at point-blank range in front of his wife and 7-year-old son last April. Police say they're still hunting for the gun and a number of items stolen in the robbery.
The power of football is to be used to help young people in Plymouth improve their education and communication skills. BT and the Football Foundation have joined forces with Plymouth Argyle to help tackle the problem of low achievement among some youngsters in the city. The project is designed to raise levels of self-esteem and confidence.
The young people will be learning media skills alongside of sports coaching courses. They'll be learning to interview players. They'll be learning to write match reports, write football blogs, football websites. The older groups will be doing some digital photography courses and a bit of digital fitness.
An inquest heard today how submariners battled unsuccessfully for 40 minutes to save the lives of 2 of their comrades trapped behind damaged hatch doors after an explosion. The accident happened in March 2 years ago aboard the Devonport-based nuclear submarine HMS Tireless when she was submerged beneath ice in the Arctic. The vessel's oxygen generator blew up when the 2 men used a chemical which triggered the explosion. The inquest is expected to last 6 weeks.
Children at a Devon school have spent the day getting hands-on cooking some fish.
It's part of a scheme set up by celebrity Michelin star chef Peter Gorton to teach children about eating healthy, sustainable food. Claire Manning went to find out more.
When your mum told you not to play with your food? Well, that lesson went out the window for these children. Today's lesson was about fish, how to eat healthily and sustainable food. It's the brainchild of celebrity chef Peter Gorton.
Some of them don't give the most positive reaction though, do they?
No, they don't, but then that's all part of it, isn't it? Kids are really honest, and that's what I love about them. If they don't like it, they'll tell you they don't like it. But if one tries it, it starts a chain reaction, and they all try it, and that's what I'm trying to create.
And Peter's right. Chefs beware, because children can be brutally honest.
What did you think of that fish you just tried?
It's really nice. It was really yummy. I caught my hand in a clam. I hate sea creatures. I hate eating them for tea.
Peter and his travelling kitchen are touring schools across the region, giving demonstrations that allow kids to touch, taste and smell the seafood he cooks.
Got lemon sole, John Dory, gurnard, scallops, mackerel. There's about £150 worth of fish on this table, and it's all been donated by S&J Fisheries, keen to support Peter's mission to introduce children at a young age to sustainable, good food.
So who knows, among these little darlings there may be a future Jamie Oliver or perhaps a wannabe fishmonger. For the moment though, there's one dish all children love.
Swimming fish, then.
What's the best thing about today?
Chocolate.
Keep trying, Peter. Claire Manning in Plympton for Westcountry News.
Well done, Katie.
Now, talking of food, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and what could be better than a romantic meal?
I'm taken, Richard. I'm sorry. But it does sound like a good idea. Romantic little restaurant, silver service. My mouth's watering at the thought of it.
Which is not what I had in mind. It's more a takeaway, but it is the Rolls-Royce of takeaways. It's Crispy's Chip Shop, the best chippy in the southwest. Jackie's there with probably what's a little bit more than 6 pence of chips these days.
Absolutely, Richard. They don't get much better than fish and chips here at Crispy's in Exmouth. It's the best chip shop in the West Country. It's National Chip Week. It's the customers that have voted, and I'm joined by the owner, Kelly Barnes. Kelly, what's the secret of your success?
We use the best quality potatoes, British Maris Pipers, and we also use the best quality oil. We also try and cook as close to people ordering as possible, just so that they can have the freshness when they get home.
And of course it's your customers that have voted you. They say you're the best. Are you pleased?
Definitely, absolutely. We can't get much better than that. That's more than we ever wanted. So.
And what else are you doing for National Chip Week?
We're also donating 10 pence from every portion of chips that we sell to the Macmillan Cancer Support, just to support a member of staff of ours that's actually been going through cancer. So we thought we'd help in that way. People can come in, pick up a scratch card with every portion of chips, and they can have a chance of winning a mountain bike, a handheld computer game, Valentine's Day meal for 2, and also 3 portions of chips as well.
Fantastic, Kelly. Thanks very much. Well, here in the West Country, we're a little bit more choosy about what we put on our chips. Dab of mayonnaise, while the Northerners, they prefer gravy, mushy peas, and sometimes a little bit of brown sauce. Richard, Gemma, what's your favourite?
Oh, I love so much vinegar that it makes you cough. No, that's odd, but I do.
Proper ketchup, gallons of it. I love fish and chips.
Yeah.
Absolutely love, but it plays havoc with my digestive system.
All right, enough of that. Jackie, the survey's been quite scientific, though, hasn't it?
Well, you wouldn't believe it, would you? But the science boffins up in Leeds have actually done a survey about what makes our chip so delectable to us. And apparently, it's all in the smell. They say it's something to do with butterscotch, cocoa, even ironing boards, can you believe it? Well, anyway, I'm a bit busy here, so I'll get back to it. I'll see you back in the studio. Salt and vinegar?
Oh, yes,
Definitely,
please.
yeah. And a hint of singed polyester.
Singed polyester. I don't believe you do any ironing to singe your clothes.
I
Mr.
do.
Barr.
I do ironing, but I do attempt not to singe anything polyester or cotton or whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, time now for a bit more on food. In fact, it's the last in our Food for Thought series, and it's the time of year when the true foodie's mind turns to the marvellous matter of marmalade.
They say it's easy to make, but I remain to be convinced. Julie Scantlebury went to meet Tony Marsland of Cornish Meadow Preserves for a masterclass.
It's the season for Seville oranges, and that's when we make marmalade. Tony, why Seville oranges?
Because they taste great, they're high in pectin, and they make the most fantastic marmalade.
Let's chop.
OK, Jules, fancy having a go?
Yeah, go on.
There you go.
Can you trust me with a knife?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Lovely. Straight into half.
Yeah.
Then into a quarter. And then take out that nice soft little bit. OK, be very careful.
Out the flesh.
Yep.
Right.
This one today is a thick cut, so we're going to cut these pieces a bit on the thick side.
Big butch chunks.
Big butch chunks.
And here's some I prepared earlier, the full ingredients for making marmalade. So we've got the peel there.
Yeah.
The pros recommend you pressure cook the peel for 15 minutes before using it. The flesh of the orange.
Yeah.
Ordinary water.
Water, absolutely. A little bit of lemon juice for clarity, OK? And of course a natural preservative, which is the sugar.
Ordinary sugar.
Ordinary sugar.
Next, blitz the orangey bits and pop it in the pot with the rest of the ingredients. And now?
OK. Bring it to the boil, let it simmer, and then we'll look at how we actually determine when it's ready.
While the orangey goodness simmers away, getting the occasional stir, I find out about Tony's career in the sticky stuff. In the last 15 years, the Marslands have developed a range of 50 marmalades, jams, chutneys and mustards, all made at home and sold by the family at food fairs, festivals and online.
We get a lot of pleasure from it. I mean, we're working as a family group here, so we're all together and enjoying it. And we keep changing the recipes to keep ourselves fresh, keep ourselves sort of, you know, on the ball with it all and excited about some of the new products we're bringing out. But we still stick to the basics of doing some of the ones we've done from day one almost as well.
This is the exciting moment, is it done or not? The cold plate test, apparently. Got a plate out of the fridge, and we put that on like that, and I just poke it.
Yeah, you just push it along to see if we can get a sort of a ripple on it. OK, not quite there, Jules, at the moment.
Doesn't stop me eating it, though.
Tastes lovely.
Well, that's gorgeous. Finally, after about an hour and a half of simmering, it's done. We have to be careful, hot marmalade can be nasty stuff. We carefully pour it into pre-washed jars until it almost overflows.
I'm going to show you now the trick of the trade.
Go on, I'm going to see it.
OK, pre-sterilised lid, again. Straight on top of the jar. OK, nice and tight. Then we invert the jar. Any air that's in there now is going to travel up through the jam. It's going to sterilise that space as well. So the whole of the inside jar now is sterilised. And we'll leave it like that till we come to wash it.
Well, you can eat this as soon as it's cold. But you can keep it up to 2 years if you don't eat the whole lot in the first sitting. Really good.
I wish we had some.
What was going on there?
I don't know. It's very good, obviously.
That reaction to marmalade, delicious or not. Anyway, if you want Tony's mouth-watering marmalade recipe, you'll find it on itvlocal.com/Westcountry.
Tonight's football seems to have escaped the worst of the weather. Exeter City's home game against Macclesfield and Torquay United's local derby against Weymouth have both been given the go-ahead.
But there are fears that tonight's clash at Playmore could be the last meeting between the two clubs because of the deepening financial crisis at Weymouth. Martin Dean's at the ground. So, Martin, what's going on?
Well, the problems have been piling up for Weymouth ever since Malcolm Curtis resigned as chairman and handed his majority shareholding back to the club at the end of December. Now, neither the staff nor the players have actually been paid since then, and the players have now given the club 14 days' notice. Basically, that means that if they don't get paid within that period, then they will be able to walk away as free agents.
So, any signs of a solution yet?
Well, I understand that takeover talks are continuing. Businessman Colin Hill and the former Cambridge United chairman Lee Power were down in Dorset last week to look at the books, and it's thought that they had a meeting with Mr Curtis yesterday, but as yet there's been no agreement. Now, the club is actually heavily in debt, and it's thought to be losing around about £40,000 a month. So if a deal isn't signed soon, then it looks as if Weymouth could go into administration or, in fact, even out of business altogether.
Oh dear, none of which is going to help the mood for tonight's game.
Well, strangely enough, I think probably a game of football is going to come as a bit of a welcome distraction after all this. The players have actually coped pretty well. In fact, they've taken 7 points out of the last 9, and I think they'll be keen to get a bit of revenge tonight after losing narrowly to Torquay when the two sides met at the Wessex Stadium on Boxing Day. It's important for Torquay's point of view, of course, not to get too distracted by all this. They need the points to get their promotion race back on track. And like Weymouth, of course, they've had a period of, 10 days of inactivity now, so I think they'll be looking forward to actually getting into action again. We'll have news of this match and Exeter's game against Macclesfield in our late bulletin at 10:30.
We will indeed. Thanks very much, Martin.
Right, let's have a look at the weather, see if it's going to be more inundation. Here's Alex.
Change your outlook with your local airline. Flybe, sponsors of Westcountry Weather.
Hello again, good evening. There are a number of flood watches out across parts of Somerset and for the northern part of Devon as a result of last night's heavy rain and the melting snow. We'll keep you up to date on that as and when we get the information. As for the next 24 hours or so, things will be a lot quieter. A widespread frost to come tonight, patchy mist and fog as well, but a decent period of sunshine tomorrow afternoon. As for the satellite and radar sequence from earlier on today, as you can see, it was a day of sunshine and some scattered showers, and those scattered showers, once they did come across into Cornwall and for parts of Devon, they were fairly heavy from time to time. The situation outside at the moment, well, it is a dry picture and it's going to stay that way for the first part of the evening and overnight as well. The skies will begin to clear, and as a result, we'll see the temperatures dip down to around -1. So, as I said, a widespread frost, and we'll see some mist and fog patches forming across some parts of the region, but the wind's fairly light. So in the morning, it will be a cold and chilly but crisp start to the day with a wintry sunshine from the word go, really. That cloud breaking up fairly nicely into the afternoon. Nothing but blue sky, a few patchy clouds here and there, but a lot of wintry sunshine. The temperature is still chilly, just 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, but the wind's a bit lighter, although it will feel fairly chilly. As for the tide times, but if you do fancy a walk along the beach in the wintry sunshine, do take a look at the time for your area. Now, as for the outlook, well, high pressure will begin to take charge. So on Thursday, it will be a dry day, although it will be fairly cloudy for the bulk of it. Although Friday and into the weekend, that's when the clouds begin to break up. So we'll see some sunny spells. The wind's fairly light. Temperatures still chilly, 6 or 7 degrees Celsius. Whatever you're doing, have a great evening.
Flybe, sponsors of Westcountry Weather.
Brighter. Thank you, Alex. Tonight's headlines. The West Country is still recovering from a vicious winter storm which swept through the region last night, bringing more snow, powerful winds, driving rain and floods.
And on day 2 of the inquest into the death of 8-year-old Sophie Waller, the court has heard evidence from the psychologist in charge of her case.
Thank you, Kate. Signing for the last time for us, so bye-bye to Kate. Right, finally, it might have been freezing blizzards outside this last week, but there was a little glow of warmth at Paignton Zoo.
During these storms, 4 tiny and very rare Sumatran tiger cubs were born. Mother Banda is said to be coping well, and we've had a sneak preview. Christine Megson reports.
It's the moment that keepers have been waiting for, the birth of 4 rare tiger cubs. But for the time being, this is as close as anyone will get to the new arrivals at Paignton Zoo. Weighing about 1 kilo each, these blind cubs will spend their first weeks with their mother, completely undisturbed.
They're off show in the den, and they will be for the next month, I should think. When they're about 6 weeks old, then they'll be more mobile and able to come out by themselves, or indeed Banda may bring them out on show. So we're setting up cameras so maybe people will be able to see a live loop. But at the moment, by Easter time, we should be able to have 5 stripy animals on show.
Sumatran tigers are highly endangered, and this is only the second litter to be born at Paignton Zoo in 25 years. Their arrival is an important step in ensuring the future of the species.
we're hopeful that all 4 of them will have a role to play in the breeding of their species for the future. Our last one went to Chester Zoo, and it's gone to be the new breeding female there. And these 4, we haven't sexed them yet, so we're not quite sure. But at the end of the year, we'll expect a recommendation from the EEP coordinator.
Yeah, whatever. All a bit serious for Dad. Fatherhood's an exhausting business. Christine Megson for Westcountry News.
Oh, sure he's exhausted after those 4 rather.
Four, yeah, marvellous. Yeah. Marvellous too. That's really a way to save those animals, isn't it?
Real success story.
Anyway, there we are. That's it from us. We'll see you again usual time tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
We are profoundly, and I think I would say unreservedly sorry.
We are extremely sorry. And there's a profound and unqualified apology. A full apology, unreserved apology.
But why sorry is not enough. Tonight, the HBOS whistleblower sacked and gagged after warning the bank it was heading for trouble. The evidence emerged as 4 top bankers faced a grilling from MPs today. Former banker Paul Moore warned his bosses over 4 years ago they were taking excessive risks, but all they did was fire him.
Also on the programme, the horror of the inferno, the dramatic stories of the families caught up in the Australian bushfires. After the freeze, the floods as winter storms continue to batter the UK. And a miraculous story of survival, the little girl who spent 18 minutes at the bottom of a swimming pool.
Good evening. It may be the hardest word, but today Westminster was ringing with apologies from the bank bosses who've helped bring the economy to its knees. The former heads of the British banks, bailed out by taxpayers' money, said sorry to all those affected by their company's catastrophic failures.
What also emerged today was the full extent of their risk-taking. A former employee of HBOS claims when he warned senior executives 4 years ago that they were heading for disaster, his staff were threatened and he was sacked and gagged. More on that in just a moment. First, our political editor Tom Bradby on the day the bank bosses had to answer for their failings.
We are profoundly, and I think I would say unreservedly sorry.
So I would very much echo Dennis's comments.
I'm very sorry what's happened at HBOS.
And there's a profound and unqualified apology for all of the distress that has been caused.
So they're sorry. Big deal, you might say. They broke their banks and damn near the country, so they ought to be. They were once titans of British banking. Sir Fred Goodwin, the former boss of RBS, who used to be paid more than £4 million a year. Sir Tom McKillop, his former chairman, once on £750,000 until we had to bail out their bank to the tune of £20 billion. Andy Hornby, former chief executive of HBOS, once on under £2 million a year. Lord Stevenson, his former chairman, on more than £800,000 until we had to bail out their outfit to the tune of £17 billion. Were any of them qualified to run these huge banks and earn all this money?
What banking qualifications have you got?
I don't have any formal banking qualifications.
Sir Fred?
I don't know whether you call them banking qualifications or not, but I have a degree in law.
Mr. Hornby? I don't have any formal banking qualifications. I have an MBA from Harvard.
I have no formal banking qualifications.
OK, so what was going on? Was it the huge bonuses? Were they part of the problem?
The bonus systems in many banks around the world have been proven to be wrong in the last 24 months, in that if people are rewarded for in purely short-term cash form and are paid very substantial short-term cash bonuses without it being clear whether those decisions over the next 3 to 5 years have been proven to be correct, that is not rewarding the right type of behaviour.
RBS was sunk at least in part by its purchase of the toxic bank ABN AMRO.
Sir Tom, I'm asking you.
Sorry?
You were in charge of this board. You've destroyed a great British bank. You've cost the taxpayer £20 billion. How would you now summarise that deal?
The deal was a bad mistake. I have already indicated that.
The bankers looked like they'd been carefully coached by PR professionals for what at times felt like little more than a public lynching. Of course, some are still being paid.
You're still being paid, aren't you? Is it £60,000 a month?
Mr. Mann, I have a short-term consultancy arrangement with Lloyds TSB, which, can I just stress, which Lloyds TSB asked me to do I've already agreed with Eric.
60,000 a month?
That is correct.
Which would be 36 of the low-paid staff jobs.
For a lot of people, it's all pretty hard to take. Tom Bradby, ITV News at Westminster.
Well, they may have said sorry for their parts in the crisis, but could they have done more to stop it? One banker certainly thinks so. Today, evidence emerged from a former HBOS employee who claims he was sacked after warning bosses they were putting the company at serious risk. Our economics editor Daisy McAndrew reports.
This is a bank no one could be proud to have led over the last few months, as it's lurched from bailout to bailout and crisis to crisis. The bosses may have said sorry, but they haven't admitted they were warned. We apologise, but it wasn't our fault, stressed the former chairman and chief executive. No one could have predicted this, was their message. But unfortunately for them, the committee had a letter from a former HBOS executive saying he had warned them repeatedly and been sacked for his trouble, something HBOS refute.
You sacked this fella. In fairness to a bank learning lessons, it seems to us in the committee with this document that you didn't want anybody being blunt with you about the risks you were running.
I do think that in a number of areas, it is a fact that very carefully arranged risk management systems, developed over the years with our regulator, did not spot scenarios coming up that have come up.
But Paul Moore, who was head of risk at HBOS from 2002 to 2005, said he did tell the bank it was growing dangerously fast and that it had a cultural indisposition to challenge. He says he felt like a man in a rowing boat trying to slow down an oil tanker, and he's accused the bank of a total failure of all key aspects of corporate governance. Then in 2005, he was sacked by the then chief exec, Sir James Crosby, who's now deputy chairman of the city body that's supposed to monitor risk. How ironic.
Well, Sir James Crosby is not only deputy chairman of the Financial Services Authority, he is also one of Gordon Brown's key advisors on the economy. So what we need to know is whether the allegations now made about the time he was running HBOS are true or not.
They aren't, insist HBOS. But Paul Moore tonight says anyone whose eyes were not blinded by money, power and pride, who really looked carefully, knew all along there was something seriously wrong in the city. Daisy McAndrew, ITV News.
Well, Tom's in Westminster this evening. Tom, they might have said sorry, but surely this evidence from Paul Moore shows exactly how out of control these bankers were.
Well, Mike, it's certainly true to say it was a very humiliating day for these bankers, but I think Daisy's piece there really illustrates that we didn't get to the bottom of this today. Clearly, there were massive failures of regulation. How were they allowed to take these risks? Why weren't they being properly looked at by outside bodies? I mean, yes, this is a global problem, as we keep being told, but the fact is not all banks, not all countries are equally affected. There is a failure of regulation there, and we haven't got to the bottom of it. It's quite a humiliating day for a lot of politicians too. Let's not forget the close links. How did Sir Fred Goodwin become Sir Fred? Well, yes, he was a close friend and advisor of Gordon Brown, nor did I notice the Tories running away from these bankers when they were doing really well. I think, though, the key political question is how do we go forward from here? Clearly, the issue of the next bonus round, massively controversial for these partially owned banks. My understanding is that what's under consideration is limiting the cash bonus and perhaps allowing people bonuses in future shares. But even so, the trouble is it's so much money, a lot of people just don't understand why they have to earn so much, and that's why it's going to remain a very, very sensitive issue.
All right, Tom, thanks very much indeed for that. And if you want to see the whole of the submission from the HBOS whistleblower Paul Moore, go to our website at itv.com/news. You'll also see a selection of your responses to the apologies by the former bank executives. Meanwhile, on the day its former boss said sorry, the Royal Bank of Scotland has announced thousands more job cuts. Up to 2,300 posts are to be axed as part of a restructuring of the business. The bank said it would try to keep compulsory redundancies to a minimum. Unions described the move as disastrous for staff.
The death toll from the Australian bushfires climbed higher today as the true horror of the catastrophe continued to emerge. These are the faces of some of the men and women and children who've lost their lives. 181 have died so far, but that number is expected to rise as the operation to recover bodies goes on. From Australia, John Ray sent this report.
After the fire, this is a land of scorched earth and smouldering ruins, among which some celebrate unexpected reunions.
I love you.
And others mourn